Welcome everybody to episode 188 of the You Can't Comp This NBA Trading Card Podcast. We are your hosts, Adam, Amy, and Russell Gibson. And Russell, I believe you have been a very busy man this week. You caught up
slightly
with,
sleep deprived.
I was going to say it was some ungodly time of the morning.
Slightly.
Unfortunately, I couldn't be there. I actually wish I was for this. But you caught up with Chris Gawlik.
Yeah.
And he's
Las
responsible
Vegas
for
based.
that article, wasn't it? The regulator
Wrote an
hobby.
article. Really busy guy in the hobby, actually, which I didn't realize. He's a full-time breaker. He edits a magazine.
Yeah.
He writes articles, obviously. So just, interesting guy and good to get his insights about it. And the other thing I didn't realize too was that his background was gaming. So the prism that he looks at cards is through that background of gaming laid on top of the probability and chance part. So really good conversation with that. And
yeah, like that would, I'm really sad that I missed it, really. Like but that's all right. I guess
I reckon he'll come back on, man,
he will. This will be great because I'm very curious. So without further ado, let's go and listen to that interview.
Welcome back, everybody. And if you're paying attention, we are not with Adam at the moment. We are with Chris Gawlik from Silver State Cards and Sports, who is the president. He is the lead breaker. He does hockey cards. He's also a podcaster himself too, Locked on Vegas Nights. And finally, he's the Collectibles site editor for Hockey News. So, Chris, thank you so much for joining us. We're very happy that you're here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good early morning. I can see you getting that morning stretch going right there. I guess I'm a hockey guy that kind of jumped into the sports card collectibles world. I created my business, Silver State Cards and Sports, and rip hockey cards 5-6 days a week on Whatnot. I got a podcast, Locked on Vegas Golden Knights. If anyone's curious about what's happening with the Vegas Golden Knights in the NHL. And then I'm the Collectibles site editor, like you said, for the Hockey News. So that's what we got going. Hockey coach, hockey referee, a lot of hockey.
Just eat, breathe, and dream about hockey by the sounds of it, man.
I don't know if it's dreams all the time, but it's definitely hockey's in my sleep too, yes. I actually did dream about hockey last night. It's funny you said that. I dreamed we had a hockey game inside of a casino, like in like a ballroom, and it was just really weird. It was actually kind of cool though at the same time.
So my stock standard question for everyone that comes on as a guest is, what's your original or your first hockey memory? Well, actually, I say collectibles memory. Do you remember walking around the school ground with cards in your pockets? Like,
I can give you my first collectibles memory.
Yeah.
I was probably, I'm 44 years old, so born in 81. It was probably 1986, 1987, maybe 88, somewhere in around that ballpark. Little hot dog joint in Bloomingdale, Illinois. I grew up in the town next door, Glendale Heights, and it was called Sporty's Hot Dogs. They had like little cello packs down there for like $1 or 50 cents. And look at my daddy, buy me a pack of cards. Bought it, and that's my first pack of cards. First hockey memory, I think I'll probably go back to my first NHL game I went to. It was probably in 89 or 90. It was a playoff game with the Chicago Blackhawks and the St. Louis Blues, and Brian Noonan got a hat trick. I think it was a losing game, but Brian Noonan had a hat trick. So I got to see a hat trick in the Chicago Stadium in my first ever NHL game way, way, way back.
It's just like the details you got of those memories is crazy, isn't it? Do you remember what cards they were selling in that little shop?
It was Topps Baseball. It was like a cello pack. And I remember my dad actually quizzing me about what cards I pulled afterwards. I remembered most of them.
Alrighty. So how I found you actually was on Twitter, and the article you wrote is regulation needed in sports cards? And Adam, who's the guy that I do the podcast with, he's literally got a T-shirt that says "Regulate the hobby." So I think when I was reading this,
I want that shirt. Can you send it to me? I'll pay the shipping. I'll pay for shipping. I know it's expensive coming from there, but I'm in.
I think we can see what we can do.
I'm in.
That's easy.
I am in.
I'll chat with you afterwards, man.
All right, okay.
I'll see what we've got on hand.
Looking for the shirt.
Yeah. So when I read this, I was like, 100%, we need to reach out to you. We got to get you to come on the show and have a chat about this. So what preempted you to write that article? I think that's where I wanted to start with this, and then let's sort of, go from there.
Number one, I'm in Las Vegas. I have a background of managing poker rooms. I managed 2 poker rooms on the Las Vegas Strip for about 12 years.
Right, and that makes sense because at the start of the article, that was the first reference you made was a comparison of gambling and
I think I used.
regulation.
I don't know if the Buffalo slot machines are a thing out where you are or not, but it's a very popular slot machine here in the United States.
We have pokies. I'm assuming it's the same type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I just kind of started joking about, hey, you're in Harry Reid Airport, formerly McCarran Airport. We have gambling in the airport. If you haven't been through Vegas recently, it's pretty crazy. And the gas stations and grocery stores, by the way, you can gamble. I don't know if you knew that. Vegas is crazy. But point being,
I didn't know grocery shops. That is crazy.
Oh yeah. Point being is I was joking about it. I said, hey, what if you hit a jackpot on a slot machine and all of a sudden the machine turns off? What do you do? How do you get your jackpot validated, especially if the machine says you didn't really win a jackpot? Well,
yeah.
The answer is you call gaming and you get this worked out, and they'll come and review the video, they'll review the slot machine, the data, and ultimately they'll do their best to validate your jackpot. And it got me thinking, like, okay, well, what about sports cards? And I think I'll start by putting this out there right now. Dave Adams, very big in the hobby. They put out a $1 million bounty on a Connor Bedard Young Guns Gold Outburst 101. $1 million if you pull this card. $1 million. Life-changing money. The boxes, they retailed for close to 400 USD.
Yeah,
when they came out, and they dropped a little bit as time went on, but people still were chasing this $1 million card.
Yeah,
and then lo and behold, on one random, I want to say it was a Friday morning, little fine print, 3 dots, ... or 3 little stars, updates, December 9th, 2024. The product released in early March, by the way. This is no longer an active bounty. It has expired. No warning, no leadway, no nothing. So people had spent, 6 months chasing this Bedard. Yeah. I had, opened tons of this for my customers and everything. So this gets you thinking, ethic, morals, is this legal what happened? And it kind of then brought everything together.
Yeah. Yes. I suppose just to try and maybe fill in some gaps on that. So David Adams is a massive, they're a reseller, but they also do wholesale allocation out to their customers. They will buy sealed product off customers too and then sell it back into the market. So they're absolutely huge in terms of where they are in the hobby. Probably the thing I would add to David Adams is I feel like they're not as big as what they were maybe 5 years ago. Other companies have sort of come up and
sure, you got them, Steel City and Blowout doing a lot of business and breaking breakers now too, yeah?
Yeah, and breakers. And then also too, they break cards now too. So that's probably where they're sitting at the moment. And that's not the first time they've actually offered a bounty on a card, is it? They've done other things similar to that to get interest and get people buying product. I think it's a market strategy they've definitely implemented. Yeah.
It's a great strategy.
Yeah, for sure. So I suppose the next part of that for me is, okay, they've done this thing, you're questioning the ethics of it. How do you unpack that next? Like, what do you think that the hobby should do after this?
It's a fair question. So I guess starting with the concern about this, why this hit me pretty hard. This product was selling for, like I said, it was close to $400 when it released, dropped around, and again, USD, however that converts, I don't know, but it dropped to around
600 for us, basically.
Okay, it's a lot of money, right? That seems like a chunk of change.
Not fantastic, yeah.
So the product dropped a little bit as time went through, and maybe right before the bounty, you could probably get boxes for upper 200s, maybe a lower 300, maybe about 260 or so.
Yeah,
still a lot of money. The concern that I have as a consumer, because I play in the hobby as well, and as someone on the industry side of it, if you will, is this company has now made how much money selling this product? I mean, how much more money are people really paying? So here's the comparison. You can buy this same product, 2023, 24 Upper Deck Series 2. You can buy this product now after the bounty has been expired, air quotes, for less than $200 a box right now. That's how much it dropped. So the first question that we're going to ask ourselves is, how much money did Dave Adams make off of this? Because it was inflated. I feel pretty confidently, although I don't have their financials in front of me, I feel pretty confident they've more than profited $1 million for the extra chase, if you will, the thrill of the chase people have spent, because you look at what the boxes cost now. So now the continuation to where this ties into regulation. I'm going to make sure I choose my words carefully here. Number one, I'm not accusing Dave Adams or Panini or Topps and Fanatics of any level of improprieties. I'm not saying they're juicing boxes to people. I'm not saying, I'm not going to say that, but
this is just a purely conversational piece. Absolutely.
No, I understand, but it's going to be out there. We'll make sure people understand my perspective on this. But in the same breath, what I want to know is, what is my protection as someone who has bought from Dave Adams, who buys from places locally and places around the country? How do I know this Connor Bedard gold outburst is not just sitting in the farthest bottom pallets of a shelf somewhere, whether it's at Dave Adams, whether it's at Steel City, whether it's at Blowout, or wherever it may be? How do I know they didn't just tuck it all the way in the back to make sure the hobby, just to make sure that because let's just say that card got pulled on day one on release day, right?
Yeah.
The product would have tanked. That does nothing for the hobby shops. That does nothing for all these big giant retailers. So that's where the regulation comes in. I want to know how it's determined where these boxes are given out. When you run a casino, when you run a poker room, you have a bunch of rules and regulations you write for the poker room. Those are the things you hold yourself accountable for. You present those to gaming. In the event of an impropriety, someone says in the poker room, "Hey, I won this hand, but it went to this patron. Why did this happen?" Well, we're going to look at our rules, and then the patron's going to say, "No, I disagree." And now we're going to bring in an independent party, which is Nevada Gaming, the Nevada Gaming Control Board, and they're going to review our rules. They're going to review a statement from me. They're going to review a statement from the customer. They're going to watch surveillance, and they're going to say, "You know what? Here's what happened. We agree. The casino made the right decision," or "No, you patron XYZ, you should have got that $400 pot. The casino owes you $400.
Yeah.
Gaming protects both sides. And I think that's needed to protect both sides of the hobby. Businesses and consumers both need that protection.
Yeah. So just to unpack that a little bit further, I think that's a really fun part to speculate on. So what was the timing of the release of the bounty? Had they stockpiled a heap of stock at, say, they bought it at $100 a box and they can then resell it for $300 a box after they've announced the bounty? That's definitely fun to speculate on. I think, and the next part for me to add to that is, so I'm reflecting on NBA into this conversation now. For the higher end products, they are hand packed. For the lower end products, so just say we're talking about Donruss Sallows or Prism, that's all machine packed. So I think in the event that it's machine packed, it's less likely that a human knows where that one-of-one card is, although I'm sure they'd be able to trace it and logistically work it out, where it was shipped out to, and at least, identify into a stream where it was. So if we're being controversial here, you could say, well, we could send this particular pallet, as you were saying before, to a bigger breaker, or if you wanted to go to David Adams, you could do it that way. Like, definitely, I sort of see your point on that. But look, I'm probably not in that conspiracy theory of they know where cards are, because even though, you sort of hear stories about backyard breaks getting all of the good cards and they get the one-of-ones and all that type of stuff, I'm probably more of the opinion that they get a lot of one-of-ones more to the volume of cards that they actually rip on their page, as opposed to there's a deep-seated conspiracy that, Panini is feeding them all the hits. And so, look, maybe I'm being naive with that. Maybe we should be a bit more skeptical and, be discussing how are the cards packed? How do they trace them back? How do they serial number them and, put them through all the crates? Because there was that instance where people were mapping out the Crown Royale boxes so that they could get the kaboom out of the single box. Do you remember hearing about that story?
Weighing them like to the gram, you mean?
So how did they work it out?
I know there were stories like on Reddit and other places.
It wasn't about the weight. It was about either a printed barcode on it or there was a serial number on the box. So people actually like going onto live feeds, asking the breaker to, zoom in, rotate the box around, look at the number, because they'd worked it out, like actually where it was sequenced.
It's
so
crazy.
When someone did it on a live feed, that was sort of it. Like the story became quite public. This must have just been a basketball isolated incident.
I know someone, a friend of mine, gave me a similar conspiracy theory with want to say it was the Zion Williamson National Treasures Collegiate product a while back.
Yeah.
And he, again, this is no more than just me and a friend talking, but
Yeah.
pretty
Cool.
convincing. And he was buying boxes and he was showing me his hits and reselling them. And he was becoming profitable at it in a very difficult. It's very difficult to open a box of cards and turn it into profit. And he found a way to do that in a short run with National Treasures Collegiate. Whether that was simply making money off of the Zion hype at the time, which overinflated every rookie from that product, or if he really knew something. But yeah, those are the questions that we should be asking, and those are the questions that should have answers. I guess ultimately what I would like to know is, when I select if I'm going to buy a case from any giant online retailer, or if I'm buying factory direct, I want to know why they're giving me this case. I want to know why they selected this case and not that case over there. I want to know why they took a case from the top shelf and not a case from the bottom shelf. And again, I'm not saying there's anything happening out there. There probably are things happening. I don't know if it's happening that high, but it's like you said, it would be naive just to assume everything is going the way it should be, because this is why we have checks and balances, whether it's in sports cards or politics. I mean, another subject for another time, of course, or casinos, lotteries, all these local things that people are gambling on. This is another conversation. Is sports cards gambling? I mean, to an extent, I think it is, because there's a lot of elements of chance every time you open one of these packs. So what we need as consumers, as sellers, as business owners, as kids in the hobby going to Target or local retailers and buying, stuff off the shelves, we just need to know that everything is happening. Everything is on the up and up. And I should be able to reference some type of procedures that show why things are happening the way that they are. And when you do see a retailer, going back to the Dave Adams situation, when you do see a giant retailer just pulling the rug out from the entire hobby that quickly, those are the types of things that someone should be able to look at, because people have spent they're so heavily vested. And now if they pull, what's that card worth if you pull it now? It's not $1 million. It still hasn't surfaced yet, by the way. It still hasn't surfaced yet. It's not worth $1 million now. And that's a kick in the what for a lot of people when that happens.
Yeah, especially if you bought heavily at the $300 mark and then it's now worth $200. Yeah, I mean, the other way.
How about the hobby shops that are buying from distribution? I mean, they didn't know this was coming. Think about that. Sorry to cut you off there, but
no. I think we're talking about the same thing. Yeah.
If a hobby shop did a huge order on, let's call it December the 1st, from anyone, not Dave, it could be from anyone. Yeah, they're paying based off this $1 million. Those cards tanked on December the 10th when this news got out about this. They tanked.
Yeah, definitely.
People
it definitely
lost
affects people.
People lost hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, no, I think that's a real thing. So you've touched on a few different things, so I'll just try and unpack this one at a time.
I keep going all over. I'm sorry.
No, you're totally fine. So the first thing I remembered was the number off the boxes was actually on a Panini hologram. So each box had its own separate hologram number. Yeah. The next thing you were talking about was the tracking the cards and how it comes out. And I think that conversation actually is more relevant than what you would probably imagine. And the reason I say that is because the CT scanning conversation that now people are having.
God.
And it's like, so who's owned this box before I got my hands on it? Has it been through 3 different people already? And one of those 3 different people have actually put it through a CT scanner. And so I think what you're talking about there, initially when I was listening to you saying it, I'm like, well, I'm not too sure how A, you can implement that, but also B, actually, is anyone going to care enough about this to make that happen? But I actually think at some point people are going to care about this, because if you're purchasing product that is known to have gone through a CT scanner and you know that it's got nothing in it, I think actually people will care about that, and how that's going to play out through the hobby. That's, for me, is very much like a wait and see thing. And I actually think that Fanatics are going to do something about this. Either they're going to put a device into a product that says, almost like a sensor, if it goes through a CT scanner, the color of the sticker will change, and then you'll know it's been through a CT scanner or not.
Like the die pack at a shopping at a store or something. You take the shirt out without paying for it, and the die pack explodes. There you go.
Yeah, and I think also too, I really need to think about my time in my old science classes. Do CT scanners have radiation?
You're asking me? I have no idea. I have no idea. I have no
While
idea.
I'm asking you, I'm actually just Googling.
Oh, fair enough. While you do
Yeah,
that, I
so
mean,
it does. It
oh,
has
good.
ionizing radiation. So look, I don't know how much of an easy fix this would be, but also I suppose too we're talking about something on a huge scale, aren't we? Could Fanatics put a sticker on it that does change with radiation that comes out from a CT scanner?
That's interesting. That's
Yeah.
very interesting. This hobby has got more dangerous all of a sudden, radiation and stuff now.
Alrighty, it's time to take a break. Let's have a quick break. Let's hear from one of our sponsors, and when we come back, we'll continue the conversation about CT scanning and sealed sports cards. Thank you so much to US Sports Cards Australia. Head over to ussportscardsaustralia.com.au. Once you're on the page, you will find a huge range of products available. Sports breaks, baseball, hockey, wrestling, singles for sale. Ross is building a consignment service, which is currently sitting at about 3,000 cards. He's got more cards in on the way. Go on there, find all of your singles on there. They are categorized down to the nth degree. NHL, MLB, NBA, NFL, soccer, TCG, UFC, pop culture, WWE, and also racing, collectible protection, hobby boxes, sports memorabilia, and of course the mighty water pistols. Thank you so much to Ross and Michael at ussportscardsaustralia.com.au. Welcome back, everybody. This is part 2 of our conversation with Chris Gawlik, who is a Las Vegas-based hockey breaker and also sports card writer. We're having a fantastic conversation about regulating the hobby and some of the impacts that might have. Let's get back to it.
So you mentioned the CT scanning, which, oh my God, that is just crazy to even think about that happening right now.
Yeah, it's so bad, isn't it? It really
something
changes
else that
the way
maybe
we
you
perceive
mentioned, and this is where I'm going to give props to Dave Adams. This is the first time I actually am going to offer props for this particular business of what Dave Adams does. So
do you have a love-hate relationship with David Adams?
No,
Sorry
not at all.
you.
Not at all. Not at all. I'm actually, I'm mad about the bounty, but I've been very down on. They offer something where they say it's factory direct boxes or factory direct cases, and they actually put a video out of them wrapping and whatever it is. So you have the nature of this.
Yeah.
Actually, this boasts the value because of the CT scanning and all that. Dave Adams is offering you this guarantee. Hey, this came right from the factory directs.
Yeah.
It hasn't been through all these different, spur tracks, if you will, of a railroad. This is right from Upper Deck. This is right from Panini. This is right from Topps and Fanatics.
Yeah.
And we're offering you proof. This is actually good for them. This is actually, I've never liked that since day one because you're paying like 30, 40, 50% more for the box or the case as far as what they're traditionally selling for. This actually validates that arm of their business. So I give props to Dave Adams for that.
Yeah.
Back to the scanning, back to where these boxes are coming from and stuff. So you mentioned, can we track a case and all that? And that would be really interesting if you could, because let's just pretend for a second that all these cases are going through. I'm in Vegas, 89002. There you go. Everyone come find me in Henderson. I'm in 89002. It's easy to find me. What if all of these cases went through the 89002 area code and then they went to 47360, just whatever. Yeah. And it's this, and that happens to be this big breaking company who's pulling these massive 101s and shields and logo patches for Logomans out of NT and Flawless, or the diamonds and all of that. They all came from 89002 and they all went to 47430, whatever, throwing a random number out there. That'll be interesting to see, because then you might be able to track along the way who owned this box and who is putting these cards through scanners or weighing them consistently and all of that, and trying to find crack codes and everything. So that would be really interesting. And again, this ties back to the regulation and the protection for, and it's not just to protect the consumers. Like, I want to be clear about this. Regulation protects consumers and the business owners. It protects both sides.
Yeah. So what's a practical way of implementing regulation into the hobby? Because this is something Adam and I have spoken about. It's like, what actually can you do? Because, we talk about regulation, but from cost is definitely something you'd have to factor in. And then also the way my brain sort of processes is, how would you also police it? Once you've made a rule, how do you make sure that every person out there is complying with the regulation that you implement? So if you were in charge of Fanatics for the day, what would you do?
So, number one, just to answer that, first of all, it's very difficult for this to get going because Nevada gaming is much different than how Missouri gaming operates. That's much different how New Jersey gaming operates. They're all independent of each other. Yeah. And there's not a lot of
You
casinos.
quoted $10 billion. What's the comparison of price between sports card and gambling? Like, what's the pot difference?
What the scope is? I mean, I'm sure casinos are probably, sports cards are probably a $1 billion industry, where gambling's probably a $100 billion. I have no idea what the scope is, but I'm sure
I thought you said $10 billion of cards was spent in your article, unless I understood that wrong.
Let me, I can go back and read that. There is an article. Let's see here. Let's go back to my regulation. I do remember that, and billions spent on every year. So I found an article on SkyQuest, and I linked it on the article. The quote is, the sports card trading market was valued at over $10 billion in 2023. Yeah. So that probably encompasses from the lowest level of someone buying a pack of cards from Target to the $1 million transactions that take place probably on a daily basis between factory direct and distribution and major online retailers. It's all a big blanket. So that's what I found on SkyQuest. It was an article that quoted the 2023 spending, or the valuation of the hobby in general.
And Googling, I just found that $66 billion was spent in 2023 on gambling. So the scope is not that far away, is it? Like, it's obviously a lot larger, but in terms of having a regulating body and money put into that, absolutely, it seems feasible, doesn't it? If there's $10 billion being spent, yeah.
So first of all, on the gaming side, like I said, each individual area has a separate gaming, and the rules and regulations are significantly different.
Yeah.
You have to probably look at this, and again, I'm referencing the United States of America when I say these things.
Yeah, of course, that's fine.
We have lotteries. Not all states have a lottery, number one, but many states do have linked lotteries. Megabucks is a slot machine. Mega Millions, I believe, and Powerball are multi-state lotteries. I don't know how many states.
Yeah, we've got Powerball back here too.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how many states encompass that. So you would have to look at the scale of that. And then the other thing, sports cards are sold in every single state. Every single state you can buy a sports card. So now you're bringing together all these different states. So does this need to be at the federal level, at the state level? Do gaming, or do the sports card companies just take the ball and run with it and decide to offer this unparalleled level of transparency? Like, a question that I have, like, I got a box right here in front of me. Of 20, 22, 23 extended series hockey. How many boxes of those are out there? How many boxes of those were created? I think that's a question that I would like to have answered when I start. And then we kind of go from there. What's the answer? If I was in charge of Fanatics or Topps or Panini or Upper Deck, it would start with more controls, and it would start with transparency. I'm sure they have plenty of controls internally. I'm sure there are plenty of protections that the employees have to follow. I would like, as the consumer, as someone that probably does spend a high 6 to 7 figures on cards a year for my business, I would like to know more about those controls. So if I go into a casino, for example, you're not going to see all of the controls, but you're going to see at least enough of the controls.
Yeah.
As far as you're going to see their rules. Like, you look on a pack of cards. I mean, I got a full garbage can here, but got all that fine little print right there and all that. That's not enough to cover all the details needed about this product. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think on Upper Deck, it actually tells you the pack hit rate, doesn't it, of each card?
It does, unless something is considered a short print. A short print is unannounced odds, or even there could be an unannounced Easter egg. And Easter egg just simply being a parallel that was put in that no one knew was going to be in there. That's what that is.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So that's the way around to, like, if you knew...
backwards calculating how many boxes there are. Yeah.
People are able to calculate on Panini FOTL products, first off the line products. I believe you're able to calculate exactly how many of those boxes are out
Flawless
there.
Flawless and NT is the same too. Yeah.
What's that?
Flawless and NT is the same too. Because
exactly.
The way it's serial
because
numbered,
you can... FOTL has exclusive first off the line parallels. You can go backwards and do the math very easily. unless they say it's an exclusive short print, everything gets thrown off then.
Yeah, definitely. So what would you do though? Like, tell us about your regulation, because this is like one thing I definitely wanted to talk to you about. Like, how would you make the hobby, safer for people? Because
I would start by at the highest of levels. And this starts at the factories, I think. I want to know why Upper Deck, why Topps, why Panini. I want to know why they send this case to this major retailer.
Yeah, sure.
I want to know why they send that case to that distribution. I want to know why they send this case directly to this card shop. I don't want to know what's inside there. That obviously is the thrill of the chase.
Yeah.
But I want to know how this selection process happens. And then if they're going to say it's completely random, awesome, great. Okay, how is it random? What are your controls for the randomness?
Yeah.
How do we ensure that this is actually happening? And again, I'm not pointing the finger saying anything is happening that shouldn't be happening, but like you said, the word was naive. I don't think we should also take everything at face value.
Yeah.
Because you do see these major breaking companies pulling massive amounts of 101s. But again, I'm with you. It's volume. It's a volume game.
Yeah.
I ripped many more cards in 2024 and early 2025 than I did in 2021, 2022. So therefore, my hit ratio has gone up exponentially. So
yeah.
I do support that it's a volume game.
Have you ever hit a card that you're like, oh, a huge breaker would have wanted to have this card?
Oh, God, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
The big McDavids, big Bedards and stuff like that. And I've made the joke before. I have actually cracked the joke. Oh, this one was supposed to go to backyard. We got to, and again, it's a joke. I'm not, again, let's make sure we take this the right way here. But yeah, no, we make those jokes, or even some of the bigger breakers. I'm by far not the biggest hockey breaker on whatnot. There's probably 4 or 5 that can run circles around me. So I've joked, oh, this should have gone to that breaker and stuff like that. And it's a joke, but again, I have a gaming background. I have a background in Vegas. I have a background of controls, and regulations, and everything.
Right.
So,
okay, that makes so much sense about how you put your article together. Right. Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of just what it comes down to. Just more transparency for the hobby, and I think that's the $1 million question. You started by saying, if I'm in charge of a major company, what would I do? And the answer is more transparency, and I would put myself right out there and say, this is why this is happening. This is why that's happening. And I would have no problem as the head of a major head of a company going on a podcast. And if someone is absolutely dogging me saying, oh, my product, all the hits are going here, I would love to go on a show and say, listen, let's have a conversation. Here's our controls. Here's why this has happened. Here's why what you're saying is not, instead of just kind of skirting it like a lot of these companies do, I think.
Yeah. I think if I was in charge for the day and price was no measure, I would have it GPS tracked, so then you can know and see where it traveled to. And actually, I think that would be a really fun thing, because I think sealed product gets traded a lot and it gets moved around.
Oh, a ton.
Yeah. So I think that would be fun. The second one would be the CT scanner, how you can manage that, whether it's like a piece of panel that changes color if it goes through the CT scanner. And then I think the third one would be to implement a rule that no product can be hand packed. It has to be packed by a machine. Because I just think that in terms of potential for somebody to be given a very particular card or a particular case, I trust a machine more.
Life-changing. Let's say that's the right way. A life-changing card.
I trust a machine more than I trust a human. I just think if you take that human element out of it, I think it's just harder for that to be manipulated or to be changed. I think that would be if I was in charge for the day, that's what I would do.
Or you would be able to at least go on some websites or some governing body and see the difference of, okay, this is a hand machine product, or this is a hand packed product.
Yeah.
You can see what the controls are to ensure everything is happening the way it should be.
Yeah.
Versus if it's a machine packed product, this is why it's happening.
Yeah.
And these are, again, I'm not pointing any fingers, but there's so much money happening. There's so much money changing hands and all of that. There just needs to be a little more protection for when a bounty is taken away at the last second without announcement. There needs to be a clearer understanding as to why this breaking company might get more cards than this breaking company as far as the bigger hits. Is it simply a volume game, or is there more to it? Where was this case? Was it here? Was it here? Was it here? Was it here? Was it here?
Yeah,
and by the way, when it gets to here, when it gets to here, all of a sudden that seems like we're maybe a high volume of cases is going through here. And then when they go to the next stop, if they go to the 89002 area code, all of a sudden that's where all the big hits are coming out of. But when they go to the 4738 area code, 473812, 5 digits area code, they're getting a bunch of skunks.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. So I think when we reference our product, in the back of my head, I'm always going to Panini. I assume you're going to Upper Deck. I think one of the major downfalls of Panini is that their communication hasn't been fantastic. So when you talk about seeing what's happening in the background, I actually can't imagine Panini would open their doors for people to look at that. It's just not their MO. And I think that's the difference in communication, or the difference I've seen between the two companies being Panini and Fanatics in a very early stage. It seems to me that Fanatics are a bit more transparent, and they're a bit more willing to communicate with their customers on a much larger scale. And I think maybe that's one thing that Fanatics have done a lot better in the very early stages in comparison to Panini, is that they're just communicating, this is what's happening in the hobby. This is how we're doing things. And so for me, the easiest example of this is Panini Instant. That's something that has never, really done well at all in my mind. And that's staggered me a little bit. Whereas you see with Fanatics already, they've had the triple auto for the Olympics, which I don't know how they managed that or how they regulated that. I've got no idea at all. And then the other one too is they did one for Cooper Flag. And I think that the money that they moved through that product, which is, I've got no problems with Fanatics making money, by the way. I don't mean it like this at all, but more to the point, I don't think that even the best Panini Instant didn't do better than Cooper Flag. And I think that's just we're going to see this is just at the beginning, I think, what we're going to see. So when you talk about, regulation of that, I would love to see how they packed out those cards and how they sent them out to people, because I think that is a really interesting question, because why did I only get base cards and this guy got parallels? How were the cards packed? So the reason I say that specifically,
and those look like they're all hand packed too, and the parallels going too. I could be wrong.
I've got no idea, and I would love that to be machine.
They have to be hand packed, because what if you buy 100 and I buy 10? You know what I mean? I would think there has to be some type of human element that determines that, or there's a human at least dropping in the hit somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah,
we don't know. We don't know. That's the problem. We don't know.
Yeah, that's right. So. And one thing for me is you're talking about a website you could go on. So the cards that my brother bought, he bought some Otani instant cards.
Yep.
And when they arrived to him, we didn't know if they'd already been opened or if that's how they came from. Is it Upper Deck that does the Otani cards?
No, that'd be Topps Fanatics, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Topps. So, yeah, I think you're definitely onto something when you talk about this. And with the scale of money we're talking about, it's not outrageous to talk about, is it?
No, like we said, a $10 billion industry that's only going up. I've read other articles that project more exponential growth throughout time. So
I think we're going to see a lot more growth. And again, that's what Fanatics have already done. They're spending a lot of money on marketing.
And they're doing a great job. Let's be clear. They're definitely reinventing the wheel in a lot of ways. I don't pay as much attention to stuff outside of hockey, but even in my limited exposure, if you will, of what Topps and Fanatics are doing, you do see
you'll be getting some blowback and some reverberations surely in your socials about what they're doing. Yeah. Hey man, we're already up to 37 minutes. Is there anything else that you want to talk about that we haven't touched on?
No, we're good. I mean, I think we're pretty solid. Like I said, I'm not knocking anyone, and want to make sure
definitely
the closing argument is fair here. It's simply, if I feel like something happened wrong to me, who do I call? You can't call the same person. Can't be the judge, the jury, and the executioner. That's not good for anybody.
Yeah.
And I don't have the money sitting around to go into litigation or sue anybody of something. I can't afford to. These companies can afford a lot more money than I can when it comes to this. And no, I'm not suing any of these companies. Relax, everybody. But the point being is just a little more transparency in the hobby. Why did I get this case, and why did Johnny get that case? Why did this happen? like you said, I think the hand-packed argument versus machine is a great discussion. Why were these cards put here? Why? And again, I don't need to know where the hits are. I just need to know that everything is completely on the up and up from the moment they press print on the cards, even before that, whatever their controls are. And we don't need to know all the controls. That's not what this is all about. But there needs to be something between what's happening now and what needs to happen. And I think there's a solid middle ground that I do hope all these companies find, because it's a great hobby. It's a great industry.
Yeah.
It's certainly
not going
exciting
away.
to be chasing life-changing cards out there. And it's also equally as exciting to open lesser products, lesser value, that are just fun for people to collect and stuff like that. So it's a wonderful hobby. I love everything about the sports card industry. A little more transparency and protection for the consumers and the major retail sellers and the companies is needed.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Chris. It's been a fun conversation, and actually for me this has gone really quickly, so I appreciate it a lot. Have a fantastic day.
Thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate it and look forward to seeing what the feedback is on this.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Okay, it's time to take a break, and let's get back to our ongoing sponsor now, to Fast Break Trading Cards. Head over to fastbreaktradingcards.com. You'll find a range of sporting memorabilia and also entertainment trading cards. Tops, basketball, football, baseball, soccer, Formula One, tennis, UFC, wrestling, Garbage Pail Kids, Tops Finest X-Men 1997 reprint. Pre-order for $350 on that. 2024 Tops UFC Finest Hobby Box $325. Pre-order 24-25 Tops Liverpool Palatial Hobby Box $1,400. That looks epic. Disney Lorcana, Pokemon, One Piece, Star Wars. Don't forget they also sell supplies, and you can drop in your cards for grading with PSA and also BGS. Thank you so much to the lads at Fast Break Trading Cards, 75 Tulip Street, Cheltenham, Fridays 12 till 6, Saturday 9 till 5, Sunday 10 till 4. Alrighty, Ad, we're back. How you doing, buddy?
I'm great. It's it's very interesting times with you and Mr. Gawlik. I'm sure we'll be touching base again. Let's because I've got thoughts on regulating as well.
I think you'd be keen to have a chat with you, mate. Honestly, we need to get you two together. Alrighty, let's talk. Our next segment is going to be about the Pokemon card thefts that are happening across Melbourne at the moment.
Yeah, let's give some context for our, I suppose, our global listeners, even outside of Victoria, because it's very local. This is local to us, but I think it's a national problem. It could be, and we saw the madness going on around the world, so it's not like we're the only ones that are affected by this. But I think we're in the midst of almost like a crime wave.
I feel like globally the problems they have with Pokemon are more people fighting in Walmart,
punching on in Walmart.
Targets.
Yeah,
you know, we don't have that same type of cultural phenomenon happening, but to me, this is very much becoming a thing. And actually, the reason why I put it into the sheet, I was a little bit reluctant to put it in, but I've had people come and talk to me about it outside of cards.
Yeah,
you know, friends, colleagues.
Well, it's been on the news.
My wife's work colleagues. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And so it makes me think maybe this is actually something we should be discussing and bringing some light to, because actually that's the main thing I wanted to talk to you about is, you know,
it's
what
about awareness and it's about creating awareness and understanding what's happening.
Well, there's more and more footage coming out of them. Their faces from the CCTV, and they're not always they're wearing face covers, but not fully fledged face covers. So I've been sitting there trying to pause it, see if I can screenshot it. But, you know, it's very pixelated. But my sort of gut feeling of, you know, fast forwarding to the end of this, I think someone's going to identify who they are.
I hope so. I really
just a matter
hope
of time,
so.
because
it's been
sort of gut feeling
11 stores inside the last 8 weeks or something.
Yeah, actually, let's go back to the start. Adam, tell the story about how this is all unfolding and coming out.
So throughout Victoria, as I just touched on, over the last sort of 8 weeks, maybe 10 weeks, I think it was around about 10 stores when I first heard. Oh, sorry, it was 8 stores when I first heard, but then it was different stores around the place. One place got broken into twice. And then some very reputable, well-known stores also getting targeted by this. And it's all in the Melbourne metro area.
And outer north.
And the suburbs, but but it's Melbourne. Melbourne, Victoria is...
Correct, Melbourne, Victoria, yeah.
It's not like one shop in Australia and then a different state and a different state. This is in a capital city.
Correct.
And in the surrounding suburbs. but I think we're now it's either 11 or 12
Yeah,
inside the last 3 months.
Yeah,
and that's not a coincidence. That's not an opportunistic. Oh, what's in here?
yeah.
This is very targeted. This is a very concerning group of individuals going in and breaking into stores, and they're targeting the Pokemon stock.
Yeah. So why don't we talk about how they're breaking into the shops first, and then we'll talk about what they're stealing in a sec. So they are relatively well organized, and the reason for that is because they're stealing cars to do the break-ins. So they actually have identified the cars that have been used in the theft, but at the same time, they've already been noted as stolen cars.
Stolen vehicles.
There's that part of it too. So obviously it's not their first time committing crime, so they're obviously quite around that. The other thing they've said too is that they're very adept at breaking into places and quite quickly. So they're using crowbars and other sort of heavy tools to break into places.
Yeah.
And then the third part of showing that they're, organized criminals or, someone who's done it before is that they are very targeted in what they want. So there's some suggestion within the hobby community that actually they're going to the hobby stores before they're robbing them, casing them out, working out where everything is, hitting the places, going to exactly what they need and getting in and out within sort of 5 or 10 minutes. And so it's not enough time for security services to respond. They're getting away before the police are attending the scene. And this is not a sledge at the Victorian police, but they're not exactly known for quickly attending crimes. Like they're often very busy doing other things. And so, we had an assault in our street. This is going back a few months ago, but the police didn't turn up for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And this was an assault with machetes. And so, the police are just very much under the pump, and it's not like in the movies where they turn up immediately and start chasing the bad guys down the street. That's
chasing
not how
through the streets and stealing garbage trucks and smashing property. Like it's
not how the Victorian police are,
No, speaking of garbage trucks, didn't they use a wheelie bin in one of the break-ins?
Yeah, that's right. So that's the other part of their MO is that they're using a wheelie bin to
load everything up,
out, which
and
is
wheel it out.
I suppose it's portable. You can put a lot of stuff into it. You move it around corners pretty quickly. I'm not calling the criminals smart here by any means, but in terms of the logistics of it, it's quite smartly organized. Yeah,
probably not thinking of the quality of the cards and if they're damaging them, chucking them in wheelie bins.
Oh, look, I mean, they're criminals, right? So let's talk about what they're stealing. So they're stealing Pokemon. My suspicion of the reason why they're stealing Pokemon is because it's not serial numbered, and I suspect it's easier for them to move the stock on without being identified. But at the same time too, the amount of stock that they've stolen, so some shop owners are saying it's $20,000 of stock they're coming in and stealing. Other people are saying it's up to $100,000. Like that's not easy to move that amount of stock in such a short period of time without other people knowing about it. So
are they stealing predominantly sealed product, or are they
sealed product is the main thing?
Are they also taking singles? Because that's the thing. In one of the interviews I was watching, and they were talking about cards, and all they're showing is graded Pokemon cards with thousands of dollars on the price tags.
I think they're doing that for the TV
for context,
sets, but I think what they've actually been, that's right. They're trying to demonstrate the high value of some of these cards, but from what I understand, the majority of the stuff that's been stolen is sealed product.
Yeah,
they have been stealing some singles, but that's been a very small portion of what's been taken. Okay. I mean, so my theory around that is that they would then be breaking them on, say, a breaking platform. Not that this is in any way affiliated, but for example, Whatnot.
Yeah.
Where you're relatively anonymous, there's an expectation that a high volume of stock will be rolling through these breaking platforms. And so if you're lifting the stuff, none of it's serial numbered, none of it's numbered at all. It's actually kind of a clever play. Again, not trying to give them kudos in any, form whatsoever.
No, but stealing the graded cards would lead to trouble because you'd be able to track them down. You'd know
that's right.
You'd identify them as stolen.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Like if the stores have got records, inventories of all their graded cards, then...
Yeah. Actually, tying this back into the interview I just did with Chris, my sort of crazy idea about what can we do in the future to trace product and putting a GPS into it, I think that would be like a really interesting thing because if the product was stolen, you'd be able to immediately
report it to PSA or whoever you grade with, right? Have a central base.
Well, what I was thinking was actually sealed cases. I think it would be too hard to label every single box, but if you had like a small tracker in a case that you could then track back, So in the instance that it was stolen, that actually would be another really useful tool to then say, okay, this is where this stolen case has now been moved to, so then you could actually track it down in that sense.
Yeah.
It's a crazy idea, but
It's concerning to know that stores are being targeted in this way.
yeah, sure.
I think it's a good thing that people individually haven't been targeted. That's where I suppose my concerns lie.
Yeah, you were talking about that off air. Why don't you flesh that idea out a little bit more?
So I guess the onflow to this, or the more global version of this, is because a lot of colleagues of mine and people outside of the hobby have seen this on the news, and they've gone, "What's going on here? Like, surely it's not that bad. Like, are the cards worth that much?" And a lot of people don't know that trading cards are worth a lot of money.
Yeah, which also leads me to think it's an inside job, because there are people in the hobby that do appreciate it and understand where the value lies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think these people, I actually wonder if these people are very much deep-seated into the hobby. Because that's the other thing too. How do you shift that much product without knowing people
without knowing what to do, where to go? Because you're not going to cash converters with $100,000 worth of Pokemon stock.
Which is the other reason why I think it's just a matter of time before these gooses get caught.
And I do hope I think I share the same views as you. It's that we really hope they get caught and brought to justice really quickly. Yeah. I can't imagine it's going to be easy for the stores to get their stock back.
We're not talking about lynching these people or mob violence. We're talking about through the court system, aren't we? Correct. We're not advocating for any forms of violence.
No, we're not advocating that. I'm not going to turn vigilante. And
this is not Backyard Breaks podcast, is it?
No, it's not. No, I definitely hope they're brought to justice. I think the bigger problem is, well, not bigger problem. Sorry, the lesson here is just be careful who you tell what your product, what your cards are worth.
That's your takeaway. Yeah.
My big thing is they've seen. So if they're in the hobby, then I guess they already knew this stuff. But when they're not in the hobby, they don't realize what potentially sealed products worth, like holding onto it and things like that. But they see dollar signs, and it draws unwanted attention. I think the break-ins are the unwanted attention I'm talking about. But if you're if you're at a bar and you're telling somebody in earshot that you have cards that are worth tens of thousands of dollars, and then like somebody follows you home, breaks into your house, and you lose that your basketball cards. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't be going, check this out. This card's worth $50,000.
Yeah.
And then someone tears your house open and upside down looking for a $50,000 card.
Yeah.
Or goes to the vault, looks for your vault because they know your trading cards are worth money.
This to me is actually an interesting one, because when I go to, say, Hobby Hangout, I take a box of cards, like my trading box. Yeah. I don't even particularly watch it.
Yeah.
And actually, I've never had someone steal a card from me. And so, from that sort of perspective, I actually think most people in the hobby.
Oh, look, I agree. Most of them are honest.
99% of people that you interact with actually are, really good about it. And this is how I sort of feel about this. This is an extreme example of that 1% that just spoils it for everybody.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, what actually can you do about this? I think at the end of the day, they just have to make sure they've got insurance.
Be insured, be careful.
That they've got, some video cameras, and they have, some semblance of making it difficult for people to break in. Yeah. But I think at the end of the day, you can put all of these protections in place, and you're always going to have, people like this, which is just an unfortunate part. Hey, just like really quickly before we move on from this, do you think that they view themselves, I'm talking about the robbers now, as like some form of Robin Hood, in that the sheriff of Nottingham is in this instance is like the hobby shops, Pokemon. And they're actually liberating the Pokemon from these greedy owners or something like that? Like I sort of had that thought the other day, because what's happening with Pokemon is it's selling for double, triple what the RRP currently is at the moment.
But Pokemon tend to reprint that stuff.
Yeah, well, that's something
my
else
other
that's
point to
Pokemon,
that, right? Like, I have a lot of friends in the Pokemon community, and they're like, I don't know why people are fighting at Walmart, breaking into stores. They run out of product. You know what Pokemon will do? They'll just print more.
Well, they actually are doing that, but that was something that was unannounced. That was the other thing about that too.
Yeah. But it's all right. Yeah, it's one of those things that my final thought is just be careful, and be careful who you tell what you have that's of value if you're an individual collector. All good to be proud of your cards, but I wouldn't go putting monetary value on them, because there are ears out there.
Yeah. All right, let's get to a break. Let us thank the Melbourne Cartel. And I think if I'm counting my numbers right, this is our last advertisement with these guys. So Darren and Team Melbourne Cartel, we really hope that in the future we can work with you again. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honor.
Love it.
And
great.
Thank you for everything that you've done for us. So basically, the Melbourne Cartel are a Melbourne-based repack business, AFL, NBA, NFL, UFC, card grading, on-demand shipping, card accessories are also sold there. The Hitman series is $35 per packet. Darren works on a 1 in 4 type ratio where there's not particularly one huge hit in each one. It's like a 1 in 4 hit ratio that you would expect to be getting out of them. So the value is more evenly distributed. The other thing that's important to us, and one of the major reasons why we signed up to do advertising for Darren, is that all of the cards in his repacks are available in a list for you to get to. So again, Darren, thank you so much. Go to melbournecardtel.au for all of their services. And I think that the promo code will still work for one more week.
Nice.
Comp this 10 for 10% off all of your goods and services there. Adam, we're back. How are you, buddy?
I'm great. Excited.
Feeling good?
Ready for the home stretch.
Home stretch. Right. What would you like to talk about first? McLung or Markelle Fultz back in the league?
Well, Fultz back in the league. Let's touch on that. He's gone to your old team.
Yeah.
Sacramento are making moves.
I deny them being my old teammate. They're dead to me. I don't know what you're talking about.
Some random team in Sacramento.
Yeah, that's right.
Some
California team. That's all I'll refer to them as. Look, I love this. For me, it was really difficult for me to understand why Markelle Fultz was out of the league. So
yeah, I think he just didn't find a spot in Orlando. Really, didn't he? Just not gel there.
Look, I'm really not too sure. And actually, there's been nothing said about this at all. So that could just be that the Magic's such a classy organization, they wouldn't let anything slip out.
Yeah.
My gut feeling, it was a contract negotiation thing where he wanted $10 million a year and they were offering him, say, $3 million a year. I honestly think that's what the end of that was. And so, here we are. He's back in the league. Look, he didn't look to me to be in awesome shape. So I'm sort of not anticipating he's going to be coming back and lighting the world on fire.
Speaking of random Philadelphia picks that are back in the league, did you hear that Ben Simmons has moved to Los Angeles?
How do you feel about that?
I think it's funny. He's going to play 2 games and then he'll be done. We saw back again. He'll be fine.
Look, actually for me, he might be the best minimum paid player in the league, and maybe that's just his future.
That's fine.
Yeah,
you can just keep going around a bit. But you pay him more than the minimum, and but he's already cashed in. He's fine.
He's not the number 1 pick in the league anymore. That day is absolutely sailed, and he's definitely not a number 1 option on a team. And so I think once you sort of get past that, he's actually a very serviceable NBA player.
Serviceable rotation NBA player, simple as that.
Him with Kawhi Leonard and James Harden, though, that's a decent team. Plus Norman Powell, how well he's playing at the moment.
Yeah.
It's kind of a cool team. Matthew Yuga did a really good segment about Ben Simmons and the pricing and how far he's come down. So his PSA 10 silver is currently selling for just $27.
Frankly,
population on that's over 139.
That's over for me.
I actually think that's a really good buy. No, so the reason I say that is because the population's low. You're always going to have Aussies collecting this guy, and it's also one of those things too. It's like it's not going to go down any more than $20. So
yeah, it's $20 card. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, good point. I like it.
That's totally fine. Look, I actually don't have any Ben Simmons at all. So would I buy that for $26? Yeah, I think that's a pretty good buy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mac McLung, let's talk about that really quickly. What do you got for me?
Mac McLung, oh my goodness. The three-peat. We were hoping for a three-peat from, some of us were in the Super Bowl a week ago. We didn't get it there, but we got a three-peat in the dunk contest. So Mac McLung collectors, is it buy, held, sell time? I think it's very much sell time because this is the time of year for the last 3 years that it's been Mac McLung season. Get those cards out. That third dunk though over the car with the guy holding the ball out, and he jumped over the car and dunked it. Yeah, class.
I feel like that was just paying tribute to Blake Griffin at that point. Honestly,
well, it's the 20-year anniversary of Vince Carter. I thought it'd be the time to give props to Vince. But
can anyone else do those Vince dunks though? They were just insane.
True, very true.
All right. So my perspective on Mac McLung is that it's not a buy, a hold, or a sell. It's if you like the guy, you buy it. And it's not really something that's going to go up and down that much. And so the other thing too is he's a known commodity now. He's not particularly known as an NBA guy. He's a slam dunk competition guy. That's about it.
He plays in the G League, doesn't he? Mainly,
I think he's on a 2-way contract with
Orlando.
But at the same time, I'm not really expecting him to break out in the league and become an all-star or anything like that. Look, if you want to buy some of his cards, I think that's fine. But for me, it's a PC. I don't see any sort of flip potential on that at all. Okay, guys, so for people listening at home, this is a little bit of a tutorial for using CardLadder, another feature out of that. So this is looking at the undervalued list. And actually at the moment, it's changed quite a lot in the last couple of weeks. So if you go to CardLadder, go to indexes.
Indexes?
On the left-hand side.
Left-hand side, it's about halfway down the screen, indexes. Yep.
Scroll down to basketball, which is on the right-hand side.
Find basketball. Yep.
Then click on cards. So there's a little tab at the top.
Oh, stats and cards?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Then when that comes up, you can then click on undervalued percentage, which is one of the drop-downs on the right-hand side.
Oh, so score value. Yep. Undervalued percentage. There we go.
Yeah, so when you go to that, it'll bring up actually like quite a nice list. And some of the data on this is a little bit flawed. So for example, the Steph Curry saying it's 7,600% undervalued. The reason for that is obviously that's excellent metrics by CardLadder, but it hasn't sold for a long time, this card.
Yep.
So take that one aside. Start to scroll down a little bit.
Yeah, LeBron, Giannis.
Yeah, but for me, where it starts to get saucy is SGA, and he's right up the top there. So on that nice fast break bronze to 20 raw. I think the other thing about this too, because this statistics are so unbiased, it's all driven by data. That's not a card that I would particularly, think about, like particularly a fast break. Like they're not something that's, overly chased. So I think that's really cool to see that up there really high. You've got more LeBrons. You got some Jordan sprinkled in there, which I think is really good. You've got some Kobe's.
Iversons, yeah.
And now this is where we get to the really juicy stuff. We've got SGA, Kobe, Nikola Jokic. And this is a card we've been talking about the last few weeks. And then SGA back in there again with his vertical NT RPA.
Oh, yep.
And then more Jordan, all the way down through here. Actually, really interesting. The Showstoppers refractor is there too.
Yeah.
Interesting. That looks like a direct copy of a Hoops card, doesn't it? Yeah, so look, I think this is another one of those tools that we don't talk about, we don't really look at too much. I think this is a really good guide to help you do it. You can, and there's all different types of ways you can look at different cards here. There's values, there's last sold, there's populations, there's monthly growth. You can look at all the the monthly changes and stuff like that. So I just thought that was really interesting. And maybe also too, it's a snapshot of how well SGA is playing this year and how much extra hobby attention he's getting. And I suppose it's also, in my mind, this is actually a way to measure the marketplace in terms of how hot SGA is, and also potentially how undervalued he is. Because realistically, he's going to win MVP this year, isn't he?
SGA is, it's either him or Jokic, right? We're halfway through the season. There's still half a season to go.
I just think with the record of the Thunder, it's going to be really tough to look past him.
But if something happens,
yeah.
But you're right. The name that stands out the most, like Jokic being on the undervalued, doesn't surprise me. Shaq, Kobe, God, there's a Pippen there as well. Do you know what I mean?
And Pippen is underrated. That absolutely agreed. Does not get enough hobby love.
There's a lot of SGA, which is actually quite shocking. Like the Steph Currys, the Kobe's.
Do you know the one I'm actually surprised is Jordan? There's a lot of Jordan there. Like, how much love does Jordan get, and it still values it as unders?
Well, maybe they're just like undervalued.
Other Jordans,
compared to other Jordans.
Yeah,
like what they appraise that card to be worth relative to other cards.
Yeah,
maybe scrolling right down. Apparently, Damian Lillard's rookie is Prism Green is underrated.
Yeah.
But that's maybe because he's gone to Milwaukee now, so the people are chasing the green.
Yeah, not too sure. All right, how about we pick one more card off this each, and then we'll tie off today's show. That's pretty much we're done, mate.
Wow.
My last card to pick off is the 2015 Excalibur by Chris Paul. I think that's really cool, and I think, again, that just sort of re-emphasizes in my own head just how important kabooms are, and particularly guys like Chris Paul who aren't overly represented in case hits. I think that's actually like a really clever...
Well, that's while we're on kabooms, why don't I just finish with another kaboom as well?
Of course.
Which one shall I pick? There's a few kabooms here that are actually considered.
There's a Kobe. There's a LeBron.
There's one of the LeBrons caught my eye. The 2015 Excalibur LeBron kaboom. Yeah, undervalued. But it's saying it was BGS 10 Black Label. That's why it's undervalued.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And that's the Cleveland horizontal. So it's not the vertical. It's a bit of a weird look.
Well, thank you everyone for listening to today's show. We really hope you enjoyed it. Thanks, Adam. It was a wonderful show. It was good to catch up with you today.
It was good, and yeah, I'm looking forward to the next time Chris Gawlik arranges a time to chat. I'd like to be there.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. See you next week.
Go Spurs, go.